if you want to see ones that you missed. And for that reason, we must get your questions on the microphone. So be sure to raise your hand, give us a time to come out and get your questions so that they can answer your questions and people who listen to it can get all that. I want to tell you about parking if you haven't heard already. It was supposed to be $5. It turned out to be $5 in the morning, $5 in the afternoon. And so if you try to get it validated or paid for at the front desk, you might get the $5. And if you do that, we'll all get out of here faster too. The more of you that pay ahead, we won't be all lined up like I heard happened yesterday, that it was really hard to get out. So we're going to have a Q&A period. Again, raise your hand, we'll bring the mic, and you can always connect with the ladies after this session if they end up going long, but they end up really early at the last one, so there's going to be a lot of time for questions. Write them down. You're going to get an electronic survey after the event, and we love your feedback. And this session is eligible for CEUs, so if you want CRC or CEU, it's the table to the right, and they've really streamlined the process if you need that. So with that, I'm going to just invite you to sit back and relax and enjoy this conversation, because it's going to be a conversation more than a presentation, and I'll turn it over to you. Can we have a round of applause for the ladies from El Paso?
All right, thank you so much. You guys made it to the last one, and I feel a little bit of energy ready to go. Everyone's packed up, but we want to bring that last burst of energy over to you. My name's Bianca Cervantes. I'm the communications director over at Workforce Solutions Borderplex. We're in El Paso. Sometimes people call us the armpit of Texas, but I promise it doesn't smell that way. We're right on the tip. This is Kandolite, Carson. She's my other half. We've been working together for quite a bit when it comes to innovation, programming, and just getting everybody excited with the energy. And it doesn't just come from the awesome pink pants.
It doesn't come from my pink power pants, as you can see.
So today we're going to be talking to you about innovative networking and ways to build better relationships with your businesses. This is something that we actually started doing as part of our BSU initiatives, but now at Borderplex, we're really starting to take on an economic development approach to everything. So we've been really trying to get creative with how we're going to be connecting with our businesses, because at the end of the day, the business is the primary customer. Without thriving businesses, we can't provide thriving jobs. So my first question for you all, though, is why are you here?
Be honest. Some of you are already tired. Some of you are ready to go home. We're the last presentation. Why are you here today?
So some of us are board paid for the trip, and we're here for the awesome, but hopefully you're here for more than that. How many of you are here because your team needs better outcomes as far as business services? Okay. What about some of you, any introverts in the room that want to get better when it comes to networking? Okay, hey, no shame in being an introvert. I am actually an introvert. I just like to perform and put on shows. So you can be an introvert and be good at networking. Proof.
This is her alter ego. This is not Bianca.
How many of you need to boost your community partner situation? Okay, great. What about your old outreach ways? Are you guys just not getting there? Awesome. Okay, yeah, a lot's changed since COVID, right? Mm-hmm. And how many of you are just here to shake things up, push the envelope, and find a new way? Because that's what we're all here to do, right? Awesome. Okay. So, let me get this going. Let's go back to basics when it comes to energy. That's why I keep using the word energy. That's why we like to walk around, move around, get everything going. We are at the last session, having gone from PowerPoint to PowerPoint. You got to shake things up a bit, right? So let me give you a little bit of facts, a few facts when it comes to energy and making sure that that's going to be the foundation of what we do today and what we do when it comes to connecting to businesses. Soul sucker number one. Fluorescent light, okay? A lot of these things that we do when it comes to businesses, they're happening at conferences, they're happening at networking events, conference rooms where you have the fluorescent light. It is a scientific fact that fluorescent light does contribute to fatigue, anxiety, lullness. It's a source of light, but it does contribute to that. So if you're there, and it's over you all the time, that magical energy, that connection, that communication you're dampening it a little bit with the fluorescent light. Soul sucker number two, Back-to-back
PowerPoints. Death by PowerPoint, as we call it. And, we typically like to use a lot of videos, interaction. And, of course, this is talking points for everyone. So you can consume what we're saying and a guide. But I have been to conferences and meetings where someone has literally said, I made this last night. Ha, ha, ha. And I'm like... And then I look at it, I'm like, oh, he made this last night. And it's just like paragraph after paragraph. You don't follow the topics, the flow. So when a rule of thumb is if you're reading it, does it make sense? If you're saying it out loud and you're hearing it, does it make sense? And that's just an easy thing to consider when you're doing PowerPoints. It doesn't have to be the same. It could be 4 slides. It doesn't have to be the 20. Is there additional fun material you can give them to guide them along?
And number 3, and not to say that there is anything wrong with PowerPoints, we just want to make sure that they're engaging. So if we're trying to engage businesses and we're trying to cultivate events where we're doing better networking, you want to make sure that whatever content you are presenting, that it's not just a constant back-to-back. And the third one is professional parameters. Not to say that, you're out there with your mini skirts or anything, but it is, when you tend to be badged up and you're in suits and it's just really hard to get comfortable sometimes. So again, not to say that these things don't matter or not to do them, but just take into consideration how that might dim a little bit of what the effort is. So we're trying to get creative and push past those boundaries and change things up a little bit when it comes to business networking. So we want authentic energy. Authentic energy, all of these things kind of drain from that. Authentic energy where you get to be yourself, you get to be in a type of location where you're just more comfortable. You ignite connection, you connect with passion. We're all here, the really good conversations that you take home after this are the ones where you're connecting with passion. And you're igniting new solutions, you're birthing new solutions for it. So that's really what we're trying to get to with these new innovative ways of trying to connect with businesses. And of course, it promotes collaboration.
Yeah, and just to apply that, most of the conversations and great ones I've heard have been in the lobby while people were waiting to check their bag, while people were getting a warm cookie. That's where it was like, hey, I saw you in that presentation. I had some questions for you. Or, oh, you're in the same state as me. Or, hey, that's where those conversations are happening, not when we were sitting at the round tables or even obviously when you're sitting here, right? So consider those environments and where you're speaking the most and having those great connections.
All right, so next slide. It's our pregame slide. How do we bring the partners to the workforce yard? I hope that sparked a little something nostalgic for all of you. Anybody know who this is?
La, 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 la.
I promise we had to do this to try to hype you up. We were thinking, how could we get everybody excited at the very last session? So this is Khalees. And I know you guys remember the milkshake.
Song.
No,
anybody?
So anyhow, the reason we bring this up, I promise there's a point, there's a foundation. Take out your phones if you want to get the recipe for the actual milkshake that she makes. But this was just more of a silly way to kind of pregame for what it is that we do. So Khalees is now making actual milkshakes, and she came out on a show.
It's brand management, literally. So what is your brand? What's the culture? What do you have with your partners? What's your recipe? And all the good stuff that has been working, it might not always be coming out in that first meeting. Think about your milkshake. What is your milkshake? Is it strawberry, chocolate? Is it a mix of things?
All right. So the reason we even did that was Exhibit A. Our first efforts when it comes to connecting with businesses is a form of a happy hour that we've been doing. Now, this isn't your typical networking situation. What we've been doing, and we call it BEERS, stands for Business, Education, Employment, Resources, and Services. It's an actual happy hour. It's done in a happy hour setting, and we invite, and it's a strategic happy hour. We invite people on a monthly basis when it comes to specific industries. What we're doing at these BEERS events is we're bringing in businesses, giving them a platform to speak, to vent, have competitors, and give competitors of the industry an opportunity to collaborate amongst each other. When they're typically competitive, they're not really interacting with each other. But when you provide an environment and a platform where they can vent and they can talk about each other's issue, what they're dealing with in terms of workforce, it really is a beneficial situation for these businesses. On top of that, that's not just the only strategy. We're priming it. We're getting them ready for us to present our services. Oftentimes, what we've come to learn is although business is the primary customer for Workforce Solutions, a lot of businesses don't even know that we exist because we've put, especially after COVID, we have put so much focus on job seekers because we were the economic first responders for them that business has kind of gone on the sideline in terms of communicating and connecting with them. Although we're providing them the workers, we weren't doing the best job of providing them the services and letting them know of the fact that our services existed. So these beers events have actually supported us in creating a very comfortable platform with mentioning our services while allowing employers to connect and create a form of community when it comes to economic development. What that's done for us is it's helping create and make a more cohesive strategy when it comes to economic development and business partners, aside from businesses, the agencies, the EDOs that are out there as well, because they're part of the guest list as well. So give them an opportunity. It's the cocktail napkin deal happening in a bonding moment between a happy hour. So that's been really helpful for us. We've done a few, we've done 3, but we're going to continue doing it and continue evolving it. But that is one of the strategies that we've been using to do more outreach with businesses. And I'll let Kando do this one.
That was me. I had to be the model for this. And something else that we've tied in is, as we heard the guest speaker tell us yesterday, personal connection, right? So sometimes we have our strategy and we're like, this is the equation, who's gonna be part B? And so we're going to our partners and people and you're like, you're our part B. And like, we don't even know what is the equation? And we're just plugging them into our equation without letting them visualize the partnership with us, without letting them get to know us. And then very oftentimes those partnerships grow into other opportunities. They grow into more than just that one solution that we came up with. Visualization is something that's big and something that we've integrated into our marketing and outreach. We have a women's committee. It's called Women's Equity is a Work in Progress. We have now branded it as Her Force. So it's our big focus on continuing to empower women, have wage transparency, and equity in the workplace, right? Something that's very important to everyone. We had the opportunity to go to a beauty expo. Why would Workforce be at a beauty expo, right? That did not seem like. Well, our booth was the most popular booth there, let me tell you. We decided to create a magazine that had visualization of what we want to see in the workforce. So we thought about taglines that were going to be exactly what we're working for. And some of those taglines said, women own the workforce. That's one of them. Show me the money. Equal wages for women. STEM. Gender gap gone. Breaking down the equation that made it happen. So we put these on there, and then the gold bubble was meant for the women to fill in what would be if they were in a magazine feature or what their goal was, that was theirs to fill in. Maybe mine was Kandolite takes on workforce and becomes CEO, something like that, right? Maybe that's mine. We had young little girls, 12 years old, and they wrote in, we'll own my own business, we'll be obviously social media influencer, whatever their dream was. We had women who put, will retire early, living the glam of life, and so that was their bubble to own. The QR code scanned to a wage request form that we put in so that women are able to utilize our form for us to look at the current career they're in and see if they're getting paid what they should be getting paid in our area. So this was all integrated on there. When people walked up to the booth, at first they were like, what's happening? We explained the model, included it in here. We had everybody at our booth taking pictures, little girls from 8, women to 60, and we actually had a lot of women coming up then saying, well, what other services do you offer? And that was the integration. The expo exhibitors loved having us because we weren't just there to add on to the appeal, but beauty empowerment, and that comes with resources. And it was a really fun opportunity for us to utilize that psychology and that visualization for them. We also got them to post it online and tag it and then share our QR code for that wage analysis. And that's huge. We're giving them the opportunity, even if maybe they couldn't utilize our services, just doing the wage analysis, we're empowering them for the long game of us pushing that equity. So a lot of our branding can change when we're doing this. And we had a business card that was there too.
So as part of this, and you're probably wondering why this has anything to do with business partnerships. So this is a model that we're taking on to the Beers Outlook as well. The Beers events, the happy hours, where we set up a photo booth. We have a professional photographer. Essentially, this is a fun game that they can play. They get the image. We customize the magazine cover to the particular industry, whether it's construction, and we strategize, as I mentioned, when it comes to the hot jobs, the target industries that we're tracking and that we're able to do training with. We would do things like apprenticeship training, best apprenticeship trainer, things like that that would actually apply to a business. So we're taking this concept, this idea, to the rest of any business networking event. And on top of it, if I don't have the business card on here.
Business card.
Let me get that business card. We connect this with a business card where we make it very easy for the journey for the business that's interested in getting our services at the Beers event. They just click the QR code, they put in their name, number, email, and our business services unit is already there to help them out. So one thing I meant to mention during our Beers events is what's happening here is a tailored response to the actual business's needs. So as we're listening and we're presenting our services and they're venting about their needs, and oftentimes it's workforce shortages, but there's a lot of shortages in jobs being filled, but what isn't happening a lot, what there's also a shortage of is communication. And what these events have been doing, and what this does, it's fostering an environment where that communication can be easily exchanged in a comfortable setting. And sure, it's a happy hour, but there is a very specific initiative behind it. So when we have our business services team at the Beers event, just picture, we're at a fun happy hour, we're all getting along, everybody's kind of back and forth, we're talking about things that we're passionate about, we're bringing in that authentic energy, and at the same time, we have our BSU consultants, who they're walking around listening to what every single person's saying with the tools, the arsenal of LMI data that they know that's happening with the industry. They know what talent pool is available because they work with them on a day-to-day basis. So if they come across a construction worker that is looking for a very machinery job, they know exactly where to get those machinery jobs. So they're taking in that information and they're essentially becoming salespeople, but they're not selling cars, they're talking about talent. Yeah. So then they get the information from that QR code and they know exactly what solution to provide. And it's tailored, it's comfortable, it's not pressury, and they're making friends and they're cultivating those relationships with the business owners there. So that is the magic, that is the benefit of what we're doing with these initiatives. It's a little different, it's more than just picking up the phone and calling Workforce Solutions, it's going to a party.
And then they're personal. At this event, our BSU team was with me, and so all the women-owned businesses came over, and that was our tie-in. It wasn't just the one-on-one with all the women. It was the women who were trying to franchise, who opened franchises. So they came over and were speaking to our team and looking at this magazine, and really it was that, wow, what Workforce is doing, I want to know more about this, and I want to tie into this because I am a woman business owner. So it's also having that personal connection that makes a big difference instead of what can your business do for us, for Workforce. It's I want to know more about what you're doing and how can we work it together. I like how you work it. Can we work it together?
All right, and so another one that we've done, some of you might already be familiar with this, is we've taken the podcast effort to a more strategic business involvement level. We've had a podcast where we initially started talking about the situations that we were running into during COVID. And I'll tell you a quick history on how the podcast came to be born. It was the first time that we were all sitting at home on Zoom or Teams for many of us. And we're sitting at our homes and around us the world is crashing and people are losing their jobs by the thousands. The unemployment rate is getting to a point that we've never seen before. And it's all falling apart. But we're sitting here in front of our screens in the comfort of our homes with secure jobs. And we all know and recognize the impact and how important our role is during COVID. At that time, I'm sitting there on my teams with my leadership, and I'm listening to the way they're deciding what solutions we're going to implement. And there is passion, there are tears, there's disagreement, and I mean, it was intense conversations.
Human emotion at its highest.
And it was great. Kandolite and I come from a television background, producer, news reporter, anchor, and we know that intensity is what would get the ratings. So with my producer hat, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is like a real reality TV show, and this needs to be captured, this needs to be recorded. So I pitch it. Took a little bit of convincing, a little bit of softening, and who's willing, like, to get people to actually agree to be listened to when it comes to being dramatic was a bit of a sell, but it sold. And so my goal of capturing the emotional intensity, the passion, but more than anything, the solutions was how the podcast came to be born. So it's called the Workforce Situation Room, somewhat. It's meant to model the Situation Room in itself at the White House. And really, it was the view, but when it came to workforce and economic development and deciding, coming up with solutions on the spot. So we come up with an issue. Here's the situation. We say the issue we're having, whether it's workforce shortages, whether it's construction the construction industry is falling apart. And then we sit there, we don't really practice, and we just say, let's see what we can come up with in terms of solutions. So it's raw solution development. So that's the Workforce Situation Room background. What we do now, after now that COVID's kind of somewhat gotten behind us, now we're strategizing these episodes to be business related. So I know that our BSU services are pretty adequate, and I can speak for the entire state when it comes to how we're serving our businesses. What's missing from this service delivery is very close, authentic connection, trust, credibility in a lot of cases because we're so overloaded. Something that comes from this podcast situation and providing a business the opportunity to speak on this platform is that you give them an hour, 45 minutes to an hour to speak their voices, to discuss. It's beers in a microphone setting. And it's giving them the opportunity to talk, the opportunity to honestly open up. You're building credibility with these people, and if you're strategic, you can put businesses together and have them hash it out at the same time too. So if you have a controlled environment where you're able to allow businesses to discuss issues amongst each other, there could be the same concept, the same idea that we had with the initial Workforce Situation Room, coming up with solutions on the fly. You're doing it with these business podcasts as well. This picture is a podcast episode that we had with a construction company. They were struggling to fill positions, and we integrated a WBL program where they got so many interns, paid interns, and were able to satisfy the issues that they were having with workforce shortages, but they were also able to talk about the issues that they were dealing with. The interns got to speak about the issues they were dealing with. So it was really just a bullhorn, a therapy session maybe for everybody to just release, talk, and us be there to listen and be able to apply solutions on the go. So that's been a very, very beneficial return on an investment for producing a podcast on a monthly basis. So it's been very good for us. So that's called Workforce Situation Room for anybody that would want to subscribe, but we're doing those on a monthly basis with businesses. We're also doing it with economic development partners, Better Business Bureau, Chambers of Commerce, and that's also helping. So what we're doing is we're just stretching communication. We're stretching communication, and coming from a communication background, that just comes natural to us, and making sure that everybody's understanding what everybody else is going through and trying to find the solution with that. Yes? Capacity. The question was, why only once a month? At this point, it's capacity. We would like to do it every week, but once a month is where we have enough time to actually sit with them and do the production. So, who's who in the why and strategy? One of the things that we've been, I don't know, most of you are in workforce development boards. Do any of you support or get involved with the Chambers of Commerce events that people tend to call sponsorships, networking events, things like that? We do those, right? And they're great in terms of networking. There's a lot of value in them. But we really wanted to stretch that investment as far as we could. So we've been doing this for a while with these networking sponsorship events. We don't call them sponsorships because it's partnership events, but we have gotten very strategic when it came to the business partnerships this year. Workforce, did you have a question again? Sure, go ahead. Yes. He's asking if we're in the 6-county region of the Borderplex, which the answer is yes. We serve 6 counties, the main one being El Paso, and then there's the surrounding counties. And then and he's asking, do we do this just for Borderplex or the 6 surrounding counties? So since this is, we have done podcasts in the, as far as the rural area topic. So yes, those are integrated. But as far as these partnerships, this is last month that we started doing this. So I'll explain how we do plan on integrating that in the rural side of things. So these partnerships that we wanted to do, what we've become to learn is that in the past year, in attending some International Economic Development Council events, as just a special interest that I have, every course that I've taken when it comes to economic development certification has put workforce development front and center, where it never used to be. Workforce development used to just be an afterthought. A lot of it was real estate, reuse, redevelopment. That was all in front of everybody. But workforce development, I've somehow just become the popular kid all of a sudden at these economic development courses because that's what we eat, live, and breathe, right? So it made me realize that right now there is no economic development without the workforce. And we can all agree to that, and it's just workforce taking credit for what it really brings to the table, because I know each and every one of you works really hard to do what you do. So with this in mind, and us deciding that we're going to put an economic development department within Workforce Solutions Borderplex, is these partnerships that we've started, that we've had for years, we began to amplify them just this fiscal year. So only recently we have signed contracts, when we call them business partnership contracts, with El Paso Chamber, the Hispanic Chamber, Paso del Norte Foundation, which is a foundation that works with every nonprofit. They're kind of the banking institution for these nonprofits. And we have developed, and the city, and an EDO, which stands for Economic Development Organization. Here's just with the contract negotiation and being strategic on what we're trying to get out of these investments, outside of just the sponsorship events and the galas and the dressing up and networking, we are very strategic in making sure that the LMI is connecting to what they're trying to do with business expansion. We're making sure that there are no duplicate efforts, and just in the RFP, request for proposals, in getting people to apply, there were 3 organizations in El Paso doing the exact same thing, having no idea that they were doing the exact same thing. Duplicate efforts, millions of dollars of investment, all going to the same effort when complete silos. And in these economic development courses around the country that I'm attending, the biggest issue with economic development in any community is the siloing of communication. And it's just nobody is working together. And it's not for lack of wanting to, it's just there's not a connector. So being a connector, being a communicator, and bringing all of this together is what's really important, and that's what these business partnership agreements have done. So we got all of these proposals, we made modifications, we called one and said, hey, did you know they're doing this? No, we didn't know they were doing this. Oh, okay, well, let's make sure. So then now what's happening is that those dots are starting to connect. These partnership, these agencies and nonprofits are starting to say, okay, well, let's talk to them and make sure. So you're starting to see collaboration happening on an organic way without competition. Everybody gets competitive, but hey, toast to a beer and everybody's happier.
Your people meet my people meet your people,
Yeah.
because people need people. It goes down to that same thing. It's like the train is rolling and we're not stopping to pick people up along the way, and there's a lot of people who can help change the frontier, So how can we make events that connect? And that's like what we're trying to show, is get out of the box, get out of the same things that you can. Even if it's one idea that you do really good, maybe you're like, podcast, absolutely not. We do not have time for that. Photo booth, that's fun. 0 time for that. But think about one thing creative you've been wanting to do and connect what we're connecting with these things. What is the purpose? And can that be the one good thing you do once a month? Once every quarter? And then look at that ROI and what's working on. How is it working for you?
So I'll let Kando kind of go into the next thing when it comes to that partnership and the creativity and the bond. So
Now
this
you're gonna think
is her jam.
Now
Kando
you're
is
gonna think we're really crazy.
Kando's an El Paso celebrity when it comes to TV. So
No, I'm
take
not.
it.
Just we're former journalists gave us the skills to translate, which what we do at work, right? Is what skills do you already have? What can we polish? What are you good at? And how do we keep moving? Everything that we create when it comes to media and our outreach, we're integrating these partnerships. We're integrating our business partners because they're the experts. So while we can say and sit here and say, you know, we had a really great partnership with this building company or with a particular business who did XYZ, they're the ones who could speak best about how it impacted their business from the other side. They're the ones who worked with maybe our work-based learning. They're the ones who worked with our vocational rehab. They're the ones who worked with our transitioning soldiers. So we can sit all day and talk about the ROI and how great it was and tell the story, but we're not really the storyteller. We're the weavers. We're the glue. We utilized one of our opportunities in media production to do a series called Off the Clock. This was actually a 1-hour production that was showcased on our local news media. This was a big overtaking for us. It wasn't just one story. It was a whole 30-minute, half-hour segment of workforce and making workforce cool, because we know it's cool. And how do we make that fun? And how do we tie in the community so that they know that workforce could help everyone? Workforce works for everyone. Even if it's not a specific program, there's opportunities for resume building, soft skills, coming to our office, and finding out about metrics learning. There's all kinds of things that every time I do my elevator talk, they're like, where are you working now? I didn't know Workforce did all that. I didn't know you worked with businesses, or I didn't know, that tie-in. Off the Clock was putting all of that together and showcasing it in this series. So we invited our business partners to join us on Off the Clock. We set it up kind of like a late night show. There was some jokes in there. There was some fun. There was opportunity for them to show their personality. And oftentimes people are like, oh no, I don't want to be on camera. Then they're the ones who talk the most. You give them that opportunity, and yes, while they're being showcased as part of our segment, that also gives them free marketing, because they might likely not be able to do a podcast or definitely not do a segment. Maybe they're already running a commercial, but it's just a commercial. They're not getting to be the business owner who's passionate and started this business 20 years ago, or they might not be the new business owner who's growing and had an opportunity to gain staff through us. That person. So we had them sit down. We utilized a local production company, so we also supported their business in utilizing them. We created the segment. You can watch it on our website or on our YouTube, and we had such great feedback. On top of showcasing the business and the relationships and the personalities and personal ties, because there were tears, there was laughter, there was parodies. Our CEO literally did a parody that I wish we could show you today. And so it gave them free marketing, free outreach, showcased the work we did, and on top of it, they shared it with all their friends and their staff. They saw it on the local media. So all of that was just literally a win-win-win. We produced everything. They didn't have to spend anything but a little bit of time with us. And that was it. And so it's utilizing that back to basic word of mouth. Before, it used to be someone yelling, the news story out on the sidewalk, right? Then they used to use a telegram, then the telephone, then the radio. Everything is saturated by digital media. But there are ways to make it creative and make it fun and make it worth it. And Off the Clock was one of our opportunities. So we sat down and we put the work in, and it was really great for partnerships. On top of that, other businesses saw it. So, I know them. I want to be on there too. I want to come Off the Clock. Oh, so what services? I didn't know they did talent retention, talent recruiting, talent training. Yeah, oftentimes with our services, people think, well, I'm not going to qualify, right? That's always, what's the catch? How do you qualify? And sometimes it's like, there's no catch. Maybe for that particular program, yes, but here's something else that we can do together. And so it was just a really great opportunity for us.
So speaking of Off the Clock, I we get that not everybody has an opportunity to do a full-blown production show, and it doesn't have to be that way. Part of Off the Clock's effort and objective when it came to businesses was to really understand the role of the business and giving, again, all of these efforts incorporate giving the employer a chance to speak. So understanding employer roles with Off the Clock was something that we tried to really do, and these are the different industries that we work with in our target industry jobs. But we're starting to integrate the Off the Clock idea, which was parodies. The parody that Kandolite mentioned is called Wage World, and it was more about target industries. And we'll show it to you at the end of the presentation. But it's more about LMI. That's one parody that we did. But now that we're starting to integrate the businesses, and the demographic that we're trying to reach is the 30 to 55 demographic, we're really tapping into the nostalgia type shows that we're doing these parodies with. So one of the businesses that we're going to work with next, and we have a whole list of what we're trying to do with these parodies, is, who remembers Knight Rider? David Hasselhoff. Yes. Okay. So our construction business really remembers Knight Rider. He actually resembles David Hasselhoff. So he will be starring in our Knight Rider parody, and it's going to be about construction and about bringing women into construction. So it's integrating a business service. So we're going to teach other businesses about what we're doing in business services in the industry of construction. We're going to integrate gender issues in the workforce by bringing in more women into a male-dominated industry, and we're going to have fun doing it. And we're doing it full-blown production. We have the car, we have the green screen infinity board ready. We're ready to go, and it's a 3-minute show, and it's just a YouTube, and we're going to blast it. Guess what every other construction company is going to think when they see that? Aside from getting competitive and wanting to be the next David Hasselhoff, they're going to want to know about our services, and they're going to want to get involved with what we're doing. And because we have an amazing communications team ready to deploy and make these parodies happen, that's just another way of really getting the word out and what it is that we're doing in a non-traditional way. It's not to say that the old ways don't work, but remember, we're here to shake things up. So I brought this up because this is typically what our BSU team has to regurgitate when it comes to somebody calling business services at workforce. It's lengthy, and it's a lot for us to know. And the learning curve, even for me, having been in workforce development for 4 years, I'm still learning every day to remember these acronyms, to remember what these grants do, which eligibility requires what, how much every business gets. We can implement all of this, which is typically a page of one of our brochures, into more creative ways of doing things. Mm-hmm. So this is still, I think, pretty well written, good copy, and we're still going to use it.
It's consumable, but we want it to be, it's not automated. We go into autopilot, and then it sounds like when you call for help with, your bank, and it's like, this message has changed. Press 1, press 2, and you're like, oh my God, I want to talk to a person. And so, even though we're a person regurgitating this, it's making sure that it's consumable, it's conversational, because they don't need to know all the acronyms. I mean, at the end of the day, we're tying them in with the program, but we can say, we have this program that does this, we think this would work with you, have you utilized something like this? And then this is more like for our internal, right? Mm-hmm. Our internal knowledge, but it still comes out of our mouth sometimes. And I'm still learning to speak now, because I'll be like, wait, what? Like someone will, send me an email, we're doing this outreach for this, and I'm like, what's that acronym? And I can't Google it because it's a workforce acronym. It's in-house, right? It's our internal knowledge. So it's just something to consider when you're doing print or outreach, is getting away from, you can change the outreach, the name can still be there, but it doesn't need to be the first thing that's on there. If I read something that said, I don't know, skills development funds, I wouldn't be like, ooh, that's awesome. I don't know what that is. I'm a business. What skills? What funds? So consider that. It sounds silly to us because we're in the profession and we're reading it. So we are like, I totally know what that is. This is chemistry for someone else. And they don't like chemistry.
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially, this is your script, right? And the script that you need to rewrite when it comes to the different ways of connecting with your businesses. And then we got to know our talent pool characters. This is our cast. So this is where we integrate everything. But again, CTE, that doesn't mean anything to an employer. Even the word reentry sounds intimidating, so it's just in the way that you deliver the messaging. And that can be massaged, changed up through the different ways of whether it's in the setting of a happy hour, the setting of a podcast, a really fun production, or just a different type of interaction that's beyond the norm. That's really what we're trying to do here. So, I'm gonna let you off a little early if we don't have questions. We'll show you the Wage World clip just to send you off home with some laughs. But again, we want to ask, why is it you're here? For us, it's to elevate our community as our best selves with our best ideas. And that's really what we're inspiring you to do. That, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. It's not broken, and the traditional way will always work. Billboards will always exist. Commercials will always exist. The traditional way isn't broken. But have the courage, have the innovation to be able to try these really cool ideas. And they don't have to be this, but trying something different is usually the best way to evolve when it comes to your business services.
And welcome feedback. If you have like a really great partner who's been we have some who've been with us for 20 years. Can I ask you, have you seen some of our outreach? If you were new, like what got you? Was it because you spoke to someone? Was it a flyer? Sometimes we forget like what worked then and how did we grab someone? And they might say, well, I love you guys, but I saw this and, I don't think it would have attracted me if I had just met you now. It's okay to get some feedback if you're focusing on youth partnerships. Look at how they're promoting their foster services maybe. How are they promoting work-based learning? A lot of colleges and a lot of the districts are doing a lot of what we're trying to integrate, but they already have it in-house. What are they doing? You don't have to rinse and rewash and make something totally new. But I can bet each of you who's been in the industry is like, I had this one idea, I just really think it would work. Try it. I'm going to encourage you to make it work. Write out the plan and that one creative idea, throw it out there. You never know what you might catch.
So your community thanks you for trying your ideas. Does anybody have any questions for us? Oh.
Specific to employers, in order of, I guess, most effective to least effective, what are your best forms of communication?
In terms of communicating with the employer?
In forms of communication with the employer.
The most effective is direct face-to-face contact, which is why we're trying all of these new efforts. And let me stress that these are new things that we're trying. Typically, we've done the traditional 887 business services. I'm not really sure what the number is, but they just call our number and the BSU person answers and we assess and we apply a strategy. But in this case, why we decided to do something different is because these were really short assessment conversations in the interim. And so without that comfort level, the credibility built in the beginning with that first initial phone call, we weren't really getting the true story. So what these efforts have done and have been doing for us, and their extended efforts, but it's a kind of a source of a business retention expansion effort. What they've done for us is allow that relationship to be built to where the business services consultant has that very close relationship, texting level relationships to be able to communicate. And even though we may not get the entire story at the beginning, it's an ongoing communication between the two of them versus a one-off situation here and there. So to answer your question, the authentic one-on-one connection has been the most effective. Yeah.
We do have a good half an hour for questions, so I encourage you to use that, especially if you want to follow these amazing ladies. I have been following your progress since you guys started this type of format from the production media side, and it's so exciting. So.
Yeah, we're really trying to just get as creative as possible. There's a couple over there. She has one. Oh, you're next.
Could you just talk us through how you set up the podcast panel?
Absolutely.
How was that structured?
Do you want to know more about the technical development of the podcast or more the strategy on content?
Strategy, content, and then also the key players, how you brought them together and
Yes.
how they were able to interact, and who were the key audience?
So we reverse engineer when it comes to deciding what our content's going to be. We knew that we had an issue of digital issues when it came to businesses childcare businesses not having access to technology or not even knowing how to have access to technology or to integrate that into their business. So that was problem number one. That was the first situation. Second situation is that we had a lot of youth, out-of-school youth, that needed job opportunities or work opportunities, work experience opportunities that didn't have it. And then we also had, so that was situation number two. The third one was a new business, it's a business, tech business was coming into the community that was desperate to fill certain jobs and was really needing to they're actually similar to us, they're called Bitwise Industries. They needed participants for their programming to educate them on technology. So that was situation number three. We saw 3 opportunities there that could be braided together to come up with a program that would work. So we had the youth go into the Bitwise Industry program, which was the Bitwise training, where they learned about the technology stuff. So they had a background in that. But then we used them to go into the individual small businesses of childcare that didn't know anything about technology. So what they learned from Bitwise and their interest in technology, they became digital consultants to these small businesses with childcare that didn't know. So essentially, you were talking about the kid that's teaching his mom how to use a printer, basically. But on top of it, byproduct that we did not expect, which was probably the best, is that they were learning about early childhood education as 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds. When you teach a youth about the importance of early childhood education, you know what that does to our brain drain and to the community ownership and community pride? They get attached to the project. It's like, I'm making a difference here, not just with the business, but oh my gosh, these kids, we need to do better with childcare quality. So that was unexpected, but that's what came of it. So all of that, we saw so many situations that we could present as a podcast topic and a bunch of solutions coming together, but we also still had things to learn. So we brought all of them. We brought one of the individuals from the program, we brought the vice president of Bitwise Industries, and then we brought our program developers and our youth coordinator, and we just threw them in the pen and gave them all microphones, hair, makeup, lights, and we just push play. And from there, more issues came up of like, well, we're trying to actually work on this now. So we're developing solutions to an existing program that we developed, a solution already, but we're adding more layers with this open discussion during the podcast. So then what ends up happening after that is our audio engineer, who's already in tune with what our initiatives and mission is at Workforce, she picks up on it and she cleans it up to make it a very succinct 45-minute program.
During that podcast session?
Yes, it's discovery learning for everybody involved. And it's open. You know what else it does? And our CEO was in the conversation as well. What these podcasts do, aside from everybody learning something, is that it makes everybody comfortable enough to be vulnerable, to admit failures. And when you start to admit failures where you know you didn't do well, then you have somebody come and say, well, don't worry about it. And so you build a type of camaraderie between everybody where those solutions start to come from an authentic place. And it's not just an automatic response. That is the value of doing these types of events, doing these types of gatherings where it's not just that phone call where we get that initial, it's business as usual. We're bringing humanness and compassion into this, and that is where we're seeing the value, the ROI, which is hard to measure, but smiles.
We normally do like on a panel 4, so it's not crazy. And then we'll explain, and at first they're like shy with the mic, and then as the conversation flows, we let it run its course and then kind of clean it up. Some people will be shy, some people are long-winded, some people are passionate. But that's the great part about the podcast is it's conversational. And you guys also know your business partners and their personalities. So some of the stuff they may be like, absolutely not. That's not what my business does. It's your job to gauge that. But also if there's a little play there and you've gotten to know them, maybe they're a mom, maybe they're, an old school construction, their family started, they've been on the roof since they were 18. What gets them going? When do they have their talks? When they're eating lunch on the ground, when they're, after work having to, crack open the ice chest with some Coca-Cola or whatever, refresher. Think about some of those little ways that tie into their daily business. And then you do have those business people that are woo like us, I'm like, I'm gonna bring some music in here and I'm gonna bring this and this. And you're like, that's the person I need on our off the clock. That's the person I need talking on my podcast, because when I call them, I got to be like, hey, I got a hard stop. I have a Zoom at whatever. So also consider about those interactions, the personality tie-in. So you're not pulling teeth and saying, oh my gosh, they were awful on this podcast. They're great and smart, but they just were not conversational. So you have to think a little bit about that personality matching.
We do a little bit of just to also, it's nerve-wracking to be in front of a microphone or in front of a camera, lights on you, and so we get that. We do a very a skeleton run of show that we send to everybody right before, like, here is kind of the flow of conversation or things that we'd like to touch on. So at the very least, even if there are issues, problems, or failures, they know to anticipate how they want to respond to it and have confidence versus being thrown off guard. So we send that out before every podcast to all of the people in the show, and so that they're aware and prepared. Yes, go ahead.
Well, first thing I want to say is kudos to you. We've always admired you. This is Southeast, Pam Wise. We also do
Hi,
a podcast.
Pam. Yes, I heard it.
Yes,
Nice to
it's
meet
good
you.
to see you.
Cool.
These girls have got it going on. It's all I got to say.
Thank
but
you.
the other thing that we found out with our podcast, and probably you too, is that it gives your business services, your workforce in general, a powerful marketing tool.
Yes.
I mean, they may not even know very much about it, but they can actually say to their employers, yeah, we do all different kind of things. We even do podcasts. Now, we haven't gotten brave enough to do an off the clock yet, but we'll go back and talk to our executive director, Mary Hammond, and see what she has to say. And that also, I understand why you only do it once a month, because it takes a lot of work.
It does.
You have to plan it, you find your guest, you find your topic, and you share what you'd like to have them, talk about or explain. And it does take some time to get that done. And I guess if we had maybe 11 or 12 people working for us, we could do it more than once a month. But it does take a lot of time. So kudos to all of you guys. And we're going to bring back some of your ideas to Southeast.
Awesome, thank you. And yeah, it is time consuming to do one podcast, even though we're not actually the ones doing the engineering or the editing, but the cultivation of the topics and ensuring that it aligns to the overall economic development goals it does take some thinking. But that's why we offered a variety here, where a podcast can take some time, but it gets a lot of value from that individual business. A beers event brings in 25 businesses, and you have 25 interactions with multiple BSU consultants on the spot, ready to take them in and understand what it is that they're going to provide for the solution in the following week when everybody's not drinking. Thank you. Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Good job on everything that you're doing. Great
Thank
initiatives
you.
that you started for your
Thank you.
organization. So I oversee the community engagement part of workforce, workforce, and also BSU, Business Services.
So you're the fun girl.
Yeah. Yeah. So my question to you is, does the board support all of this financially, or do you all go ahead and get, I guess, silent individual partners party who want to go ahead and sponsor this event? How do you go to move forward with that?
This is all formula funding, and it's all in the justification language that we use, because ultimately it is going back to our strategic plan and objectives and mission to get people into the workforce, but to also get businesses successful to be able to provide for the talent pool when it comes to the skills development that we're doing. So absolutely 100%. There are a couple things that we do on a discretionary, where we get some of the private funds, and that was actually being paid for the sponsorships, because we all know sponsorships is an illegal word in the audit world, right? And we knew we want to go beyond just the sponsorship level, which we were paying for out of private funds, but we were able to do these business partnership agreements where we discovered the economic development overlap and be able to make it about not just these events, which was integrated into the agreement, but it involves for example, I'll give you Borderplex Alliance is one that we're using. Manufacturing is an industry that we're really focusing on, aerospace and defense. So Borderplex Alliance, the economic development organization, is going to be strategically working with manufacturing small businesses to be able to create the jobs, ensure what their needs are, but also using employees from these businesses to go to high schools to teach youth about career readiness for manufacturing, because that's our biggest gap. So, I know it's a lot of pieces, but we're integrating the justification, and because we're doing that, you can justify that with formula funds, and we integrate the event with it.
So, on another note, I've been to forum panels and whatnot in different sectors in which the conversation is just about issues. So, maybe that business organization or whoever put the panel together does not have the answer to those issues. How do you switch it to a positive note when I guess everybody in the room is trying to go and get those answers, and we're still having to work on what the answer is?
Could you give me, say, an example of what an issue is, just so that I understand your question?
Well, for example, I went to a manufacturing, I guess, gathering, right? And they were talking about issues and how do we get more people? You know, people are aging out.
I see.
And therefore, I mean, there is some training, and so therefore, we're all trying to go ahead and
Yes.
let's try this, try that, but nobody was on the same page as to how to move forward with this. So how do you change that?
I see what you mean. So you're saying, like, if we're with a business and they're griping about an issue that nobody can solve,
Right.
and maybe we can't solve it, how do we address it?
Yeah.
That's a very good question, and it's at the core of what we're all trying to do, right? But here's what I do when it comes to it, because I actually had an incident like that, that I really wasn't sure how I was going to answer them. And this is where preparation for these types of events and understanding the guest list that you're bringing on, you do your homework and knowing what they do, what their needs are, what their assets are, and what type of assistance they've been providing. The way you respond to those things is, and this is also a very cool PR tip that we have to, like, sometimes I get a really hard question on the news and I'm live and I have to be able to respond, and if I can't provide a good answer or I have a negative answer, I have my loop back statement, which I always use, but at Workforce Solutions Borderplex, we can also do XYZ, right? Just to kind of pad it. But to answer your specific question, I truly believe that there is some sort of solution in every single situation that we've got. And if it's a manufacturer that maybe can't fill the jobs because their older demographics are aging out, the silver tsunami is threatening everybody, I have enough background in understanding what's going on at the high school level, because a lot of our programs involve that you can, on the spot, potentially provide a solution. And that's where you have to remove that fear and be courageous in innovation and saying, would you ever consider, and then coming up with a potential crazy idea that's out of the book, but you're obviously not promising it, but like, would you ever consider this? Because this might be something that's workable. You're not necessarily saying, no, we can't help you. You're not necessarily providing a hard solution, but you're feeling it out to show them that you care enough to try to come up with something, and even potentially coming up with the solution if they're on board. So it's a lot of communication massage is what I like to call, but then, you're kind of in the gray area, but then you loop it back with, but on top of it, what we could help you with is that, did you know we have childcare access resources for some of the employers that are not staying because they're not getting paid enough? How many of them are families? So I also come from a sales background, and part of that involves knowing your product. So know the resources and benefits and incentives that your board can offer, that your programs are offering, and always have that as an arsenal, because you can always pull something out of it to where you can appease the person questioning you. And close with a strong tagline. But yeah, if you ever come up across one, let me know, and I can personally help you. That was my tagline, by the way. Any other questions? I hope we've helped
Now's
you.
your chance.
So Kandolite and I are accessible. That's something that we like to provide. I know that some of these workshops, it's really hard to do really step-by-step hands-on workshop how to do certain things, and we provided several different topics that you can try. If anybody ever needed guidance on any of this and support on knowing how to do it, where to start, we're more than happy to sit with you and have a consulting session or guide you with what it is that you need to do. And we're more than happy to do that, because at the end of the day, we all have the same mission. Our success is the success of Texas, and we're here for everyone. So thank you.
But wait, they want to show you one last video since we just got connected.
This is not it. It's an ad. I apologize. We didn't go that far.
This is the example of being uncomfortable for the sake of innovation is worth it. There's something on the other side of passing this discomfort, and this is one of the ideas that we had with teaching people about target industry occupations, which sounds really boring, but guess what we did? We made it fun. So this is our CEO, by the way. I did twist the arm. Oh, do we want to connect it to our system? Yeah. I promise it's worth it. It's only 2.5 minutes.
She said she twisted his arm to get him to do this, I think is what he said. How did you twist the arm?
So you want to know how I did it? She was really excited. She was really excited about just different ideas. I was on a high. I'll answer it after the thing. When you're ready. Oh, okay. Let me tell you real quick. So she was already on a high of like really good outcomes from some of our outreach campaigns, and I'm like, we need to do some really cool stuff. I don't know, parodies. She goes, yeah, and I go, do you like Wayne's World? I love Wayne's World. Wage World. Oh, that's awesome. All right, cool. And then like I left. We wrote the script, and I said, you're Wayne, and she was just like. So she took it like it was one of those, yeah. You gotta get them while they're happy.
Wage World, payday time, excellent. Woo, 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 woo. Yeah. It's Friday, it's 5:30. It's time to get paid. This is Wage World. I'm your excellent host, Wayne Campos. With me as always is Garth. Happy payday, Garth.
Happy payday, Wayne.
Excellent. All right. So Garth, I'm so glad we recovered from COVID. But have you ever thought we should get real jobs?
You mean this isn't a real job?
Well, my mom says it's not. She says I need to grow up and get out, be an adult. Yeah, right.
Well, I've always wanted to be a radiologist. I don't know what that is, but it has radio in it. I like radio.
Rock on, Garth. But I think that's radiologist. Remember that 8-day-old burrito you ate last year that made you spew? The radiologist is the dude that saw your insides with that wand.
Yeah, what a hurl. It was a bad day. The radiologist was my hero.
All right. Well, according to the hot jobs from Workforce Solutions, they get paid $19.84 per hour. $19.84? That's the year Van Halen released Jump. Woo!
$19.84 an hour? No way!
Cha-ching! All right, hot jobs.
What is a hot job? Is it like working in the sun?
Good call, Garth. But no, a hot job is a job that pays more than $15.91 per hour with crazy demand. There's more than 5,000 openings for hot jobs today.
Whoa, $15.91 an hour? I can actually live off that wage and not live in my parents' basement anymore.
Excellent. There's a lot of other hot jobs, Garth. The highest paying are in medical. They get the big bucks.
What do we have to do to make the big bucks?
Actually, the lady at Workforce Solutions told me we have cooling jobs.
That's excellent because we're cool?
Not. Like our jobs are opposite of hot. As if. And guess what? I'm going to go back to that nice lady and she's going to help me become a network specialist.
Whoa, what's that?
You know how I'm always fixing my parents' technology problems, resetting their Wi-Fi and making sure their email works?
Yeah, you missed last week's Led Zeppelin tribute concert because your dad couldn't print.
Total drag, man. But since I know my way around a computer, I can make a ton of money as a network specialist. Get this, Garth. $24 an hour.
Whoa! We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Well, that's all the time we have today. This rocks, Garth. Hot jobs are hot.
I can't wait to be hot.
Wage World! Payday time! Excellent!
There's more on our YouTube if you'd like ideas. Lots of them, even using one of our former weather meteorologists who came to Workforce after leaving the field and never updating his resume for 25 years. So, you know, we got pretty tactical. And Layla's friend there, he's actually one of our program specialists, Lucio. So we also gave our staff the opportunity to come do something they love, but we made it fun, you know? So all the messaging was in there in just a different way. So we hope we planted a seed, and we're excited to see what you do when you go back. Let us know if you need help. If there's it's not crazy. Try it. Think about it. Find a way to do it. You can do it. Thank you, guys.
Round of applause. Thank you. All right, and that's the end of our Workforce Forum, and we look forward to seeing you in the fall for the next Workforce Conference. Be sure to get your CEUs, your parking payment, and all those things.